What if Galarian Slowking was in Gen 1 OU? Now, this is one of the most awkward Pokemon I've ever had to cover, because on paper, it seems extremely straightforward. It's just another Slowbro, but with a slightly different type and stat distribution. And you would think that would not be too hard to go over, but for me, it was difficult, because there are some things that Slowking Galar is different at that's very good. Like, the most notable thing is, it's still a Psychic and an Amnesia setter. However, it's not weak to electric moves, meaning Jolteon and Zapdos aren't anywhere near as good of a counter towards it. But you trade that with much worse defense and a weakness to ground. And that is so much worse, since it doesn't matter how many Amnesia boosts you have, Rhydon is always faster than you, and Tauros does not care if it gets a critical earthquake. So it just leaves a very awkward situation where I don't know if this is better. I'm leaning towards it not being better, but then I have to answer myself this question. Do you run both Slowking and Slowbro? It doesn't really sound good. Both of them are doing the same thing, basically. So I really didn't know how to rank this. It's especially tough since, for Pokemon like Slowking, you can't really get a very accurate representation just by having it at a 1v1. Because if you guys have played Gen 1 OU, you know for a fact that for Slowbro, it's usually something you take out late game, and once you start setting up Amnesias when the opponent is mostly paralyzed or at low health, that's when you just go to town and take over everything. But you can't really do that in a 1v1. So that's another reason why I couldn't tell you how good Slowking actually is. So it's difficult. And another thing that I really struggled with was trying to find out what the best move would be when it comes to attacking. Because for the most part, this moveset is pretty straightforward. Just like Slowbro, you're using Amnesia, Thunderwave, Rest, but you're not a water type. So do you still use Surf? Do you go for Ice Beam or Psychic? I guess there's Blizzard too. And you got other stuff like Body Summon Earthquake, but you're not going to use it with your 65 attack. So it's weird. With everything that you have, there's some sort of big downside. And by the way, I guess I'll say now, I'm pretty sure this is its signature. I guess for the purposes of like Generation Jumble, or for this video, we'll say he can use it. But it's nowhere near as good as Psychic, which has a 1 in 3 chance to completely lower your special. But it's interesting at the very least. So what do? Psychic is probably its best move, because one thing that Slowking Galar does have over the regular Slowbro is obviously much better special attack. It goes from 80 to 110, which is good, and it means that your moves are going to hit harder, at least when it comes to stab. Pretty sure even with this special attack boost, assuming both Slowking Galar and Slowbro have max special, pretty sure Slowbro Surf is still going to hurt a lot more. And I guess that's something that I should probably answer right now. How come with regular Slowbro, why do you use Surf over Psychic or Blizzard? Because on paper, it seems like Psychic is really good on it. Because with Psychic, you're still getting stabbed, but you have that 1 in 3 chance to lower the opponent's special. So when fighting against other Psychic types, it seems like you can just hit them really hard, lower their special, so that they do even worse against you. And I've definitely seen people use that. However, Surf is usually the best option for it, solely because of power points. Because of how many moves you need for setting up Slowbro, Paralyzing so that you're faster, rest so you can recover, amnesia so you actually boost the stats in the first place. You can't really use a lot of moves, and you can't use coverage either, because you just don't have the space for it. So that's why Surf is by far your best move, because it gives you 24 power points versus Psychic's 10, or 16 I mean. And other moves like Ice Beam have the same amount of power points as Psychic, not to mention you don't get stabbed with them. And with how much you're sacrificing from only having one move, you really want to have as much power as possible, along with a lot of power points to spare. Because with Psychic, that also leads to the point where, even though it can lower the special, and you'll have a lot of special yourself, it can still be stalled out if the opponent has multiple Psychic types. So that's why you go for Surf. And that's why SLOWKING Galar is so awkward. Because I don't think Surf is the best move for it, even though it has the most amount of power points. And that's because, not only is it not hitting as hard as Slowbro would stab, but it's weirdly kinda easier to stall out. One big reason is the fact that this guy does not actually resist Psychic. He takes it neutrally, which is good for his poison typing, but it's not good if it means that Psychic types can just spam Psychic against you. In fact, that means Alakazam and Starmie can do significantly better against you with Psychic. Starmie can do good against Slowbro with the Water Resist and Thunderbolt anyways, but not so much Zam. But Zam isn't anywhere near as scared as Galar as he is than Slowbro. Not to mention, I feel like... How do I say this? Well, I guess it's worth noting that since he doesn't have the high defense that Slowbro has, even with some sets like... Let's say Snorlax doesn't have Earthquake, and let's say it's a Thunderbolt or Fire Blast Toro set, because of your 80 defense, it's not that bad if they actually try to hit into you. They can still hit you for decent damage. So a lot of things can go wrong for SLOWKING, and its typing is good enough defensively. You have the major Earthquake weakness, but for the most part, you're not like really suffering from anything. But also, along with the Psychic resistance, you also really wish you had the Ice resistance as well. But to be honest, when you're me, it doesn't matter if you resist it or don't resist it. If you're not an Ice type, every single Ice move is just terrifying. So, all in all, SLOWKING Galar, he has some things going for him. But even though he has advantages over Slowbro, for the most part, you would rather use Slowbro. Not to mention, for Slowbro's weaknesses, I think he has a better chance actually beating them than SLOWKING. Because when it goes to the Electric weakness versus the Earthquake weakness, like I said, Amnesia can't block out your weakness towards physical ground-type moves. Meanwhile, while Jolteon and Zapdos do have a very high crit rate, at least Slowbro, when he boosts his special, it makes the regular Thunderbolts way less impactful. Not to mention, he can do a lot of damage to them. So that's... I wouldn't really rely on it, unless I'm already fully set up. But that's just something that at least Slowbro can do. He can do something to actually beat his counters, which Galar... I guess he kinda can. If we assume that he already has max special, you're probably not sitting at Rhydon unless it's the perfect damage range. And Tauros is very risky. But that's nowhere near as concrete. And very unlikely that SLOWKING can set up those amnesias in the first place if they have ground type coverage. But I think I've rambled on enough. I'll say that even though SLOWKING is going to suffer a lot more than regular Slowbro, it's probably going to stay in OU. And also, ironically, even though SLOWKING is usually worse than Slowbro, because its boosted special defense is not as good as Slowbro's defense, it might be better for Gen 1, mostly because since you're at least not weak to Earthquake, it would do like way less if you get hit by Earthquake. Not to mention that added Special Bulk might be better for the electric types, but I'm not sure. If you'd like me to do a regular SLOWKING video at some point, let me know, and I'll consider doing it. But let's start off with the boy himself, Tauros. And this was the replay that almost made me want to go over a different Pokemon entirely. Because I just did not know what to really do here. Because I felt like the video could potentially be very boring if it's just a worse Slowbro that is just weak to Earthquake. But I decided to stick through, and I'm glad I did, because I do feel like there are some interesting things to talk about. But this replay right here, I guess, again, I'll remind you guys, these are not accurate representations. You're not going to send a SLOWKING against a Tauros 1v1 when both are non-status and drop any chip damage in. But it's still the same problem that regular Slowbro has for, let's say, Starmie. Don't necessarily have to worry about them with stab, but a high crit rate is extremely dangerous to you. Snorlax is also pretty bad when it has Earthquake. However, it's a lot more manageable, and that's because you're actually faster, or which you always will be with Thunder Wave. And with Snorlax's abysmal crit rate, that means you can reliably heal up instead of Amnesia's. But it's still really annoying because Earthquake so 3-hit KOs you, which means you're going to spend a lot of turns healing up, praying for full paralysis, and only then will you might get a chance to attack. And I believe this is the only replay where I use Surf instead, which, as you can see there, it did decent damage to the Snorlax at least. That's good. But I feel like Psychic is just better. Would have done a decent amount more damage than Surf did. But also against everything else, I feel like it's a lot easier to stall out a non-stab Surf. At least in my opinion. And then Amnesia Snorlax is like the most annoying thing you can possibly face. It's especially annoying since you're using Amnesia yourself. But this is also a case where Psychic is probably a lot better than Surf, even for regular Slowbro. Granted, regular Slowbro can easily resist the Ice Beams, but oh no, this is when I use Surf, I forgot about that. I tried using Surf first, and then I went for Psychic. And yeah, you can see the difference there. That's pretty decent. Not to mention, one of them has a chance of lowering Special. So, this is the replay where I was convinced that, yeah, Psychic is probably definitively better. But then that also just gives you a big problem of, you have way less power points. So even though SLOWKING is basically Slowbro, I think in a way it's almost like more high risk, high reward. Because you have less power points to really use. But on the bright side, you have more special attack. And since with Psychic you can more special, it could potentially just weaken things anymore. So it's way more of an all or nothing than Slowbro. And it might be a little bit dramatic. This is definitely a Pokemon that needs to be in a season of Generation Jumble. No doubt about that. But since you are using Psychic instead of Surf, the Chansey matchup is significantly better. Okay, I can't say significantly better. Chansey being faster and having Seismic Toss as the decent chip, that's definitely annoying. But on the bright side, you're capable of building up your specials most of the time, and then when you lower those on Chansey, it just makes you very easy to eventually 2-hit KO it. And with full paralysis, Chansey might just not be able to get those soft walls up, which is a big deal. I don't remember how the regular Slowbro matchup is. I think it's one of those cases where it just depends on if the Chansey is paralyzed, or if it's taking a lot of chip damage. But I don't really see regular Slowbro doing... Actually, no, it's definitely worse for regular Slowbro, because Chansey often runs Thunderbolt. And even though it doesn't get a high crit rate, it still hurts a lot. So yeah, no doubt in my mind, this is definitely one of its better matchups. But I don't think it's so good to where it's enough to justify using over Swellbro. Because even in this replay, where a lot of things went right for SLOWKING, it was very annoying. Definitely annoying, and could have gone very wrong with just some bad paralysis luck. And here is where not having a psychic resistance can really screw you over. Because when Zam gets a crit, it hits hard. And when it gets a crit, you're really good. Or even then, when it gets 110 special attack, isn't really that much different from Swellbro's 80. But this is the unfortunate part. There's no reason for Zam to not spam Psychic. Because not only can those special drops be good for it, but if it gets a crit, it does like 60% basically. So Zam can just keep going for crits. It doesn't even matter if you get a one special drop, because again, the crit will ignore that entirely. I'm still gonna put this in a could go either way, because Psychic, once you get max special, is still very possible for you to set up all of those amnesias, and it can hit pretty hard. Its special drops can be very annoying for Zam, if not outright dangerous. But it's a could go either way that I'm leaning more towards Alakazam winning almost every single time. And for this replay, I will admit that the SLOWKING definitely got lucky with that clamp miss. But to be honest, SLOWKING is pretty bulky, especially. So you probably could afford to risk a few clamps. And if you paralyze the Cloyster, you just do really well. Cloyster cannot do much to you other than exploding, and you're, for the most part, free to set up, unless they explode. But to be honest, forcing your Cloyster to explode is, I'm gonna say, probably not a good trade. Maybe it is, depending on the team. As, like I said, SLOWKING probably would be a like, win con for a lot of teams. But that's funny that even Explosion only does like 84%. And that's just with SLOWKING's worst defense. Swellbro takes it even better. Though it does hit with a resisted Surf, so it doesn't hit as hard either. And Executor is kinda not really sure where to rank this. I guess it would do much better against Executor when there's no sweep. Or when there's sweep claws, I mean. But at the same time, Executor can hit as a mix attacker. Double Edge doesn't really do that much, unless... its damage isn't really that bad. But even then, like, again, SLOWKING doesn't resist Psychic. So if the SLOWKING gets put to sweep, or even without it, I can see Executor just keep going for the Psychics. It just seems like very annoying for SLOWKING. And this is probably a good time to mention it, because I made a big mistake for this replay. When you have Amnesia with SLOWKING, since it does have higher special, once you use 2 Amnesias, at that point you're already at 954, I think. So if you saw here, in Gen 1, a stat will roll over to a small number if it is larger than 1024. So I used too many Amnesias, and because of that, when the SLOWKING finally did get opportunity to attack, the Executor tanked it very well, like to the point where it only did 3%. So SLOWKING Galar is actually like Mewtwo, where it's, you need to go for 2 Amnesias, because at that point it's already enough, and if you raise your special a little too high, then it's going to go to the opposite, where you're just going to do absolutely abysmal damage. And we do not want that. No siree. Also, I guess the Executor matchup is bad. I don't really know what else to say. Gengar, I do though. If Gengar gets paralyzed, that's already annoying enough. But if you miss and there's an Amnesia, you might be kind of doomed. But also, Nightshade already does decent damage, but Psychic also doesn't really do that bad. You have a good crit rate, which can hit past the Amnesia boost. Plus, you get the ability to maybe get a special drop as well. But for the most part, it's not really worth it. Even if there's like no sleep clause, or not no sleep clause, even if something's already asleep, I mean, Gengar getting paralyzed in of itself is already a big death sentence. And unlike Slowbro, this guy is always going to have super effective coverage, I think. Unless you guys can explain to me why Ice Beam, Blizzard, or Surf would be better. But for now, I'm still leaning towards Psychic being the best one for Slowbro. And is it me, or does it feel like his replays taking a lot longer? I guess it makes sense since SLOWKIng's so bulky and it needs to set up a lot. And I did bother going over it. Pin Missile. It's still not good at all. But remember, Poison's weak against Bug in Gen 1. That was technically a quad effective move. As you saw there, Thunderbolt actually did more than 2 Pin Missiles. And unlike Pin Missile having 85 accuracy, Thunderbolt is always like a 99%. And even then, you saw there, that was the lower damage range. Technically, it did more than Thunderbolt, but that was with 10% with each. So it was only barely stronger than Thunderbolt, while Thunderbolt had better accuracy. That's why I need to keep telling you guys, stop using Pin Missile. It is not good at all. And even with quad effective damage for a Pin Missile, Thunderbolt most of the time, it's just going to be better. Like almost every single time. I didn't bother making a replay with Jynx using Wealthy Kiss, because I feel like the matchup is already pretty interesting even without it. Because SLOWKING does not resist either of Jynx's stabs, so it could set up, and paralyzing the Jynx is very annoying for it. However, the Jynx, I can see it very well potentially fishing for crits, getting a special drop, or just being lucky with some critical blizzards. It's not a good matchup at all for Jynx. It's definitely a good one for SLOWKING, but that's also assuming nothing's been put to sleep. If you can still put something to sleep, obviously Jynx is solos. So overall, I'm going to call that a could go either way, I think. Now for Rhydon. You're not going to have the opportunity to set up Amnesias against Rhydon. It's faster than you, and Psychic's only a 3-hit KO. Which, by the way, just a friendly reminder, Rhydon only has 45 special, and SLOWKING has 110. This right here should just show you just how bulky things truly are in Gen 1, and how much of a difference it is when every single thing can have max HP, max defense, and max special defense. But yeah, bad Rhydon matchup. Avoid it. And here is the one that we've probably all been waiting for. A Slowbro versus SLOWKING. This is not funny. It's just funny. Because you have two guys just sending amnesias, paralyzing each other. Well, here's where I'm going to explain why I think Slowbro is unwinnable. Because technically speaking, both of them can get good paralysis luck. And then with the special drops, they can potentially beat it. But, as you see there, Surf is hitting for neutral. Meanwhile, Slowbro is resisting Psychic. And even with a special drop, Slowbro can always just raise it again. And even if we use other moves, such as Ice Beam or Surf, those are going to do even less to Slowbro. And it's not like you can fish for freezes with Slowbro. Because in order to take on the opposing Slowbro, you need to use Thunder Wave, otherwise Slowbro will paralyze your SLOWKING, and then it can just win out the Wall of Attrition. So no matter what, Slowbro is always going to be hit with resisted damage. Most likely, it's going to be hit with Psychic, which not only can it not care about your Psychic special drops, but with Psychic versus Surf, assuming there's no like full turns of paralysis, Slowbro can always just PP saw you. Not to mention, if it gets a crit, it hits a lot harder than if you hit a crit Psychic. So you can definitely drain the Slowbro of its resources. Like as you can see here, you drained a decent amount. But overall, just something that the Slowbro I'm going to say is always going to win. And it just kind of shows that Water Psychic is a pretty, or surprisingly good defensive typing. Or maybe not even that surprising, as we have Starmie here. And despite Starmie having a really good crit rate, I'm gonna say Slowking doesn't care anywhere near as much. Because not only is Psychic not always even guaranteed, Volt Beam Starmie sets are so very good, and with those sets, the only thing you have to care about is a freeze. So I think against Starmie, it's a lot easier for you to set up against it, despite having a better crit rate. It's weird. I don't really know how to explain like why this happens the way it does sometimes, but it definitely hurts Starmie that it doesn't have the bulk that Swellbro has. But that's weird because it has recover, but it cares a lot more when you get a special drop. And I guess a lot of that does have to do with the fact that it can't just go for amnesias. And believe it or not, I don't think Starmie having amnesia will be okay. So Slowking could always do, like as you can see there, that's just a 2-hit KO. And that was without a special drop. So I'm only gonna call it a good matchup. Not a great one. But it's just weird seeing the two Water Psychic types back to back, and seeing just how different the matchup really is, despite both having good advantages over the other. And last but not least, we have Zapdos. Now Zapdos, I don't think cares about the paralysis too much, because it has agility. And I'm not sure if going for Critical Thunderbolt is better, or Drill Peck. I'm going to assume Drill Peck. And as you can see there, Drill Peck already does a pretty decent amount. Although it is fair to say for this replay in particular, Zapdos only won because of good paralysis luck. However, it also didn't crit either. So I think no matter what, Zapdos can do some pretty good damage. I'm not sure if the Zapdos paralyzing the Slowking is even optimal. Probably not. So in most cases, Zapdos will get even more opportunities to attack. So I'm still standing by my decision to put Zapdos in. Could go either way. Speaking of which, here is the tier list. Maybe these shouldn't be in unwinnable, but maybe this should. I'm not really sure. So like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't know exactly where to rank Galarian Slowbro, or Slowking. Because it's a late game cleaner, which I couldn't really accurately show for the replays. And I'm not gonna like battle myself, or get someone else to battle me, to make like multiple different replays, just to potentially tell if it's good or not. I'm just gonna have to find that out for a season of Generation Jumble. But this is where I need your guys' help. I say this a lot, but I mean it more now than ever. What do you think about Galarian Slowbro? Do you think it'll be better than regular Slowbro? Do you think it'll just be a good alternative? Or is there even a reason to like justify using both of them? I really want to know what you guys have to say, because I still can't think of a good conclusion to this. Thank you all for watching. This is Groundback, and until next time, I look forward to hearing from you.